Have you ever had one of those days where you just collapse in the shower and let the water hide your tears? Where no one can see, no one can judge, no one needs to know you're at your breaking point. I had one of those days, and it was right there, with the water falling and steam filling the bathroom, that I whispered something I never imagined saying. God, I give up. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't rebellion. It was pure surrender. And you know what happened in that moment? Something I never would have expected. For the first time in months, I felt like I wasn't alone in there anymore. I'm going to tell you something nobody mentions in Christian self-help books. Sometimes the miracle begins exactly when you stop pretending you're okay. When you stop holding the door shut, afraid of what God will find inside. What if your moment of greatest weakness is exactly when Jesus is waiting to show his greatest strength? If you're here because you're tired of trying to be strong alone, subscribe to the channel and share this with that friend who needs to hear it too. Because what I'm about to tell you in the next few minutes might completely change how you see your struggles. Let me take you to a moment in my life. It was just a regular Tuesday. You know those days when nothing is dramatic, but everything is wrong? The washing machine broke down again. My oldest daughter was having problems at school. Bills piled up on the kitchen table screaming for attention. And me? I was trying to hold everything together with duct tape and rushed prayers between one task and another. That night, after putting the kids to bed, I just fell apart. It wasn't dramatic. There were no uncontrollable tears. It was just emptiness. A tiredness so deep that even praying felt too heavy. And that's when the words came out, almost unwillingly. Jesus, I can't keep trying anymore. It wasn't a moment of heroic faith. It was the opposite. It was pure giving up. But you know what happened? For the first time in months, I felt peace. A peace that made no sense at all, considering absolutely nothing in my situation had changed. The washing machine was still broken. The bills were still there. The problems were still real, but something changed in me. I had spent so much time holding the doors closed, afraid of what God might find inside, that I never realized. He's not waiting for perfection. He's waiting for permission. You know the story of Mary and Martha, right? But let me show you something you might never have noticed. When Lazarus died, Martha ran to meet Jesus and said, as recorded in John 11:21, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." She was still trying to understand, still processing, still had that "if only." But Jesus didn't wait for her to arrange the perfect words. He didn't wait for her to have stronger faith. He simply asked, "Do you believe?" And when she said yes, even through tears, even without understanding, even with her heart shattered, it was enough for Jesus to act. Have you ever felt out of place in your own life? It's a strange feeling. You're at your kid's birthday party, surrounded by other moms, everyone laughing and talking about the latest Netflix series, and all you can think is, why do I feel so different? It's not superiority. It's not judgment. It's just disconnection. Or you're scrolling through social media, seeing those perfectly lit photos of perfect vacations, perfectly organized homes, perfectly balanced lives, and that voice whispers, "Why can't you be like that?" Psalm 120 captures this in a visceral way. "Woe to me, that I dwell in Meshesh, that I live among the tents of Kedar." These places were known for their hostility to God, and the psalmist is saying, I'm living where I shouldn't be. But here's the twist that changed everything for me. This discomfort isn't a bug in your spiritual system. It's a feature. Let me give you a picture. Think of an oak seed. You plant it in the garden, and in the first years, it doesn't look anything like the flowers around it. The flowers grow fast, look beautiful, get attention. The oak seed? It's just there, small, seemingly doing nothing special. The flowers might even think, poor thing, She can't bloom like us. But the seed isn't trying to be a flower. It's building roots, deep, invisible roots that will sustain it for centuries. While the surrounding flowers live one season and disappear, the oak is preparing for generations. When you feel out of place in this world, it's not because something's wrong with you. It's because you're developing roots in different soil. Roots that reach heaven while your feet walk on earth. Jesus prayed for you. Did you know? In John 17:15, he said to the Father, "My prayer is not that you take them out of the world, but that you protect them from the evil one." He knew you would feel this. He knew there would be days when you'd look around and think, "I don't belong here." And he's saying, "Yes, exactly. You don't belong, but I placed you here for a reason." Let me tell you about a Monday that seemed straight out of a comedy movie, if it weren't so exhausting. My youngest woke up throwing up. My middle daughter couldn't find her science project that was due that day. The dog had peed on the living room rug, and I had a work meeting in 40 minutes. 40 minutes. You know that moment when you stand there in the middle of the confusion and think, how am I going to survive this? That's exactly when I remembered something. Jesus didn't promise me a life without mess. He promised me presence in the midst of it. So right there, standing in the kitchen, with vomit in one hand and the science project in the other, I prayed. It wasn't a beautiful prayer. It was something like, "Jesus, I need you now. I don't have time for a 30-minute devotional. I need you in the next 30 seconds. And you know what happened? The world didn't stop. The chaos didn't magically disappear. But something inside me changed. That breath became lighter. That tightness in my chest loosened. And I was able, 1 minute at a time, to take care of each thing. The Samaritan woman at the well had a routine. Every day at noon, under the scorching sun, she went to draw water. It wasn't the best time. Everyone knew that. But she went when she knew she wouldn't meet the other women, because carrying the weight of their judgment along with the water jars was too much. That day began like all the others. Same path, same well, same loneliness. But Jesus was waiting there. He didn't meet her at the temple during a special ceremony. It wasn't at a spiritual retreat in the mountains. It was in the middle of her most mundane routine, carrying an empty jar and an even emptier heart. And it was there, as John 4 records, that everything changed. Your daily tasks aren't obstacles to finding Jesus. They're the setting where he finds you. That pile of laundry to fold, that car ride taking the kids to school, that sink full of dishes. It's not where you're far from God. It's where you're practicing his presence. Brother Lawrence, a 17th century monk, spent 30 years working in a monastery kitchen. Kitchen. Not in the sanctuary, not in the library, in the kitchen. And he said something revolutionary. It is not necessary to be always in church to be with God. We can make our routine a chapel where we withdraw from time to time. That sink of dishes? Chapel. That steering wheel in traffic? Chapel. That couch where you sit exhausted at the end of the day? Chapel. God isn't waiting for you to create the perfect moment. He's present in the imperfect moments. One thing I learned after years of trying to be a good Christian witness: people aren't convinced by my sermons. They observe how I react when coffee spills, when someone cuts me off in traffic, when my child has a tantrum at Target. It's there, in the unrehearsed moments, that real faith shows up, or doesn't. There's something powerful in simply not retaliating, in choosing patience when irritation would be justified, in forgiving when holding a grudge would be easier. But I'll be honest with you, this doesn't come naturally to me. My first reaction is rarely the holiest one. I have to make a conscious choice, sometimes second by second, to respond in a way that reflects Christ instead of reflecting my exhaustion. Daniel is one of my favorite stories because he wasn't a spiritual superhero. He was an exile. literally torn from home as a young man, forced to live in a culture that went against everything he believed. He could have thought, well, since I'm stuck here, I can relax my standards a bit. Nobody from my community is watching anyway. But he didn't do that. 3 times a day, as Daniel 6:10 tells us, he opened his windows toward Jerusalem and prayed. Publicly. Even when it became illegal. Even when he knew it could cost his life. And you know the story, right? Lion's den, all night long. Hungry lions. And in the morning, Daniel walked out unharmed. But here's what we often forget. The lions weren't Daniel's biggest test. The biggest test was the years of silent faithfulness before that night. Years of prayers when nothing changed. Years of doing the right thing when nobody was applauding. Years of maintaining his integrity in an environment that rewarded the opposite. The lion's den was dramatic, but it was those ordinary mornings, those repeated prayers, those small daily choices to remain faithful that prepared him for that moment. Your life might not have a lion's den moment, but you have your Mondays, your Tuesdays, your moments when choosing patience instead of explosion, truth instead of convenient lies, love instead of indifference. That's your lion's den. And every time you choose light, even when darkness would be easier, you're shutting the mouths of lions that no one else can see. Bloom where you're planted. You've heard that, right? It usually comes on a cute little sign on the kitchen wall or in an inspirational Instagram post. But I'll tell you, there are days when that phrase deeply irritates me, because the soil where I'm planted doesn't seem fertile. It seems rocky, dry, hostile. So how am I supposed to bloom here? Jeremiah has an answer that, when I first read it, almost offended me. God was sending the Israelites into exile in Babylon. 70 years. Entire generations would be born and die there. And you know what God told them to do in Jeremiah 29:5-7? Build houses and settle down. Plant gardens and eat what they produce. Seek the peace and prosperity of the city to which I have carried you into exile. Wait, you're telling me to do what? Settle in the place I don't want to be? Invest in the place I didn't choose? Seek the good of people who aren't my people? Yes. Exactly that. Because God doesn't waste any season of your life, not even the ones you wouldn't choose. Think with me. You're in that job that's not ideal. In that neighborhood that wasn't your first choice. In that stage of life that feels like an endless waiting room. And you keep thinking, when is my real life going to start? And God whispers, it already has. That difficult coworker, God placed you there for her. That neighbor you barely know, God placed you on that street for him. That exhausting phase with young children, God gave you these kids for this specific moment in history. You're not on hold. You're exactly where you need to be. And when you start living like this, something changes. You stop counting the days until things get better and start looking for where God is working now. You stop tolerating your life and start investing it. That lunch you prepare every day, it's not just food. It's an act of love that's shaping hearts. That good morning you give the neighbor, it might be the only kind word he'll hear today. That prayer you say while driving, it's literally changing the spiritual atmosphere around you. Nothing you do in love is wasted. Nothing. James, the brother of Jesus, wrote something I've been repeating to myself on the hardest days. In James 1:12, he says, "Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised." Having stood the test. That means there's a during, a process, a time between promise and fulfillment. And that during, that's where most of us are living right now. You're in the during of recovery, in the during of waiting, in the during of learning. And the during isn't glamorous. It doesn't have inspirational background music. It has exhaustion, doubt, Those early mornings when you wake up with your heart tight and think, will it be worth it? Let me tell you something I've learned. Perseverance isn't about feeling strong. It's about continuing when you feel weak. It's getting out of bed when every fiber of your being wants to stay under the covers. It's praying when your prayers seem to hit the ceiling and bounce back. It's choosing faith when logic tells you to give up. Hebrews 11 lists the heroes of faith, and you know what they all have in common? None of them saw the complete fulfillment of God's promises in their lifetime. They died in faith, still waiting, still believing, still trusting. Abraham waited 25 years for a son. Joseph spent 13 years between the dream and the palace. Moses spent 40 years in the desert before leading the Exodus. God is not in a hurry, but He has purpose. And every day you choose to continue. Every morning you whisper, "One more day, Lord." Every moment you decide not to give up. You're building something eternal. The crown is coming. But before it, there's the cross. And at the cross, you learn who you really are. You learn what faith sustains when everything else crumbles. You learn that God is faithful even when you can't feel His presence. So, let me ask you something, and I want you to really think about this. What are you going to do with everything we've talked about today? Are you going to keep trying to hold all the doors by yourself? Or will you finally let Jesus enter the ruins? Because here's the truth He wants you to know. He's not waiting for you to fix the mess first. He wants to enter exactly as it is. The tired heart, the fragile faith, the exhausted strength. He enters there. And when He enters, everything changes. Not because the problems disappear, but because you're no longer carrying them alone. So today, right now, what would happen if you stopped fighting alone? What would change in your home, in your faith, in your heart, if you let Jesus take the place that was always His? I want you to do something with me. If this word spoke to you today, if something here touched that place you didn't even know was hurting, leave your amen in the comments. Share this video with that friend who needs to remember that God enters even the ruins. And if you want to keep growing spiritually, if you want more conversations like this that renew your heart in the midst of life's chaos, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Because heaven still speaks. And maybe today He spoke directly to you. May God bless your heart and sustain you in every step of this journey. See you in the next video.